Good morning to all of you. This is Dr. B. Om Prakash, Assistant Professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, JNT College of Engineering, Anantapuram. Now I'm discussing about the topic the internal combustion engines, basics, components, and basics of the internal combustion engines. First of all, we want to know about what is the internal combustion engine. What is the internal combustion engines? What is the internal combustion engines? And before that, what is the engine? Engine is the mechanical device which is converts the here chemical energy is converted into the heat energy, and heat energy which is converted into the mechanical energy. Mechanical energy. The engines are classified into two categories: internal and external combustion engines. Internal and external combustion engines. The internal combustion, based on the combustion process, we are broadly classified into two categories: internal and external combustion engines. We are mainly focused on the internal combustion engines. What is the internal combustion engine? Is the combustion process is taking place inside the combustion chamber. We simply called as the internal combustion engines, and the combustion process takes place outside the combustion process. It is simply we consider as the external combustion engines. Coming to the internal combustion engines, the internal combustion engines are simply classified in several categories based on their usage of the fuels, based on usage of the number of strokes, and based on based on methods of the ignition system, number of strokes, number of cycles, and speed of the engine, and cooling system, and number of cylinders. Not only the number of cylinders, the orientation and the orientation of piston and cylinder arrangement also. Based on the fuel, the internal combustion engines are classified into several categories. The petroleum, based on the usage of the fuel, petrol or diesel or other alternative fuels, or CNG or some the hydrogen fuels, are several types of the fuels we are used in the IC engines. Based on the usage of the fuel, we are classified the IC engines. And based on the ignition system, it is the ignition system broadly classified into two categories: spark ignition and compression ignition engines. In this spark ignition engine, one of the main component, heart of the component, is the spark plug, and CI engine we use the fuel pump and fuel injectors for the purpose of the combustion initiation. And number of strokes, this is the based on the number of strokes. Whatever the number of strokes, if suppose we required the one cycle, four strokes, four number of operations we require: the suction stroke, compression stroke, expansion stroke, and exhaust stroke. And based on this is the all the other four operations were completed in two strokes or four strokes, or based on the requirements and based on the selection of the engine. And coming to the cycle of operation, the cycle of operations are mainly based on usage of the fuel. Suppose we use the petrol, the cycle is auto cycle, and a diesel as a fuel, a diesel cycle. It is based on the cycle usage. There are several number of cycles like auto, diesel, dual cycle, RXN cycle, and several number of cycles also there based on their heat releasing and heat development, heat develops the operations at constant volume or constant pressure or constant volume and pressure operations, how the heat energy is developed and how the heat energy is distributed and how we are maximum heat energy we want to convert into the mechanical energy, where select the cycle of operation based on usage of the fuel and based on our requirement. And based on the speed of the engine, it is the low speed and medium and high speed of the engines, and based on the required applications and required operations, we need to select the what, speed of the engine. And cooling system is also very much needed for the internal combustion engines, especially in case of the two-stroke engine. We use the air cooling system and very huge capacity of the engine. We use the air cooling system. Or more the speed and more capacity of the industrial applications, we use the evaporative cooling system. The operative cooling system is the combination of air and cooling system. And number of cylinders is the single cylinder and multi-cylinder engines. Based on the single and multi-cylinder engines, how the ignition, the combustion operations, the sequence of combustion operations, it is based on the requirements only. Suppose the two-stroke and two cylinders and four cylinders and six cylinder, the the ignition process, how the development of the ignition for each cylinder we try to discuss. These are the classifications of the engine. Suppose the component, mainly we are discussing the some basic components. This is this components of the IC engines is cylinder, cylinder head, and piston, piston rings, and crankcase and connecting rod. Mainly, the cylinder is the combustion chamber, which is where select the cylinder based on the pressure and the temperature limits. And material generally we use the materials based on selection of the pressure and temperature limits. Likely, we use the materials cast iron and steel, alloy, aluminum. And the cylinder head, which is located at the top of the cylinder, and which is includes the location of the spark plug or fuel injectors, and the wall settings also, wall locations also, the inlet wall and the exhaust valves, and that is very important thing. And the mainly the cylinder heads are made up of cast iron or steel alloys or aluminum. Gasket is one of the main component which is located in between the cylinder head and cylinder. And piston, it is made up of the aluminum alloy, and based on this is the main the piston is which is moves in between top dead center to the bottom dead center, and how the heat energy is develops. And we use the piston rings around the outer surface of piston. The piston rings are broadly classified into two categories: compression piston rings and expansion with, lubrication rings. These are it is made up of the brittle materials, and which are simply to avoid the air fuel mixture to enclose into the crankcase. And connecting rod, which is very important component, which is connects the piston and the crankshaft. And mainly the function of the connecting rod to transmit the force from the piston to the crankshaft. And material is specialty steel alloys or aluminum alloy. And the piston rings are main function of the piston rings to provide the airtight seal to prevent the leakage of the burned gases or oils. And crankshaft, which is power, is developed the power or mechanical energy which is it is develops at the end of the crankshaft, that is simply considered as the indicator brake power, that is the main the component. The crankcase, it is act as a oil sump at the bottom of the whole the bottom portion only. And the flywheel, it is one of the main component in the IC engines. It is the main function. It stores the excess energy during the power stroke or expansion process and return the energy during the another stroke. It maintains the speed of the crankshaft as constant. And we are coming to the discuss about the four-stroke engines. In this four-stroke engine, every the four operations are existing in the four-stroke engines. Hmm. Mainly, every stroke it consists of half of the revolution of the crankshaft. That is 180 degrees, and these four-stroke engines are in the case of spark ignition and in case of CI engines. First of all, we discussed about ICSE, SI engine or spark ignition engine. In this spark ignition engine, we use the one of the main component is carburetor. In the carburetor, air and fuel is mixed together based on the requirement and the load conditions. Air and fuel is mixed together and enters into the through the intake manifold. So we discuss all the operations with respect to the strokes. The first one is the suction stroke. In this suction stroke, air and fuel is mixed together. Air fuel mixture is passing through the exhaust manifold or inlet manifold. In this stroke, the inlet wall is open. Inlet wall is open, and air and fuel is mixed together, and it allows into the cylinder inside the combustion chamber or cylinder. In this stroke, the piston is moves from top dead center to the bottom dead center. Um, Simultaneously, we observe the crank, it rotates the 180 degrees or half of the revolution of the crankshaft, half of the revolutions of the crankshaft, or it covers the 180 degrees, 180 degrees. And then next immediate operation, we observe the second one is the compression process. In this compression process, the inlet valve and exhaust valve both are in closed position. And it compresses the air fuel mixture and it compress up to the top dead center. Just we observe the based on the gas laws, the Charles and Avogadro's equations, the pressure, volume, and the temperature. Whenever the volume is decreases, the pressure and temperature is increases. We know very well about the pressure and the temperature, pressure and the volume. It is inversely proportional, and pressure versus temperature is the direct proportionate constant. This is the total cylinder volume. It is the summation of the stroke volume as well as the clearance volume. The stroke volume is nothing but the volume is existing between the top dead center and the bottom dead center. The clearance volume is the volume which is existing the top dead center to the bottom, the top dead center to the cylinder head. This is very negligible volume. Whenever it attains the total the volume of air and fuel mixture, it attains at the end of at the end of the compression process. So within the compression within the clearance volume only. At the end of compression process or just before the compression process, the spark plug it produces spark, and this spark it initiates the combustion process. In this combustion process, what happens? Chemical energy is converted to the mechanical energy, heat energy. This heat energy, which is try to push the piston from the bottom dead center to the top dead center. This heat energy we try to use for the all the operation purpose. This is rotates the crankshaft, and this crankshaft we try to utilize the heat energy into maximum heat energy, which is converted to the mechanical energy. That is the power stroke. And the next one is the exhaust stock. In this exhaust stock, already combustible mixture is existing, which is existing inside the combustion chamber. It is simply thrown out or simply leaves from the combustion process, and the thing is, the this is the case. It leaves from the combustion chamber, and the cycle is repeat. This is the suction stroke and compression stroke. Just now we discussed, and these are the operations also we are the discuss. And in case of the but in case of the CI engine or compression ignition engine, instead of the combination of the spark plug and combustor carburetor, we simply use the what intake simply use the fuel injectors and fuel pumps. The in this but in this CA engine, as in case of the SA engine, air and fuel is mixed together and it allows in the suction stroke. But in case of CA engine, only pure air is admitted or allows through the intake manifold, and in the compression process, it is at times a very negligible volume, or the clearance volume. At the end of the compression process, the fuel is injected very fine droplets into the hot enveloped air, and which is here the chemical components and chemical components is with reacts the hot air, and it develops the chemical reaction, and it produces the some heat energy or the endothermic or exothermic reactions. We have already very clear idea about the this one. And endothermic reactions, it produces some heat energy and some chemical compounds in the sense of some the exhaust gases. Hmm. This is very important thing. So in the intake, my the first one, the suction stroke, the pure air is admitted, the inlet wall is opened, and the compression process. In the compression process, inlet intake and inlet and exhaust both walls are in closed position, and fuel is injected at the end of compression process or just before the end of compression process, and the chemical energy is converted to the heat energy. This heat energy is converted into the which is converted into which is converted into the case but mm, heat and the mechanical work. This is the after completion of this one. This is the chemical compounds or exhaust gases which leaves from the combustion chamber through the exhaust valve. So through the exhaust valve, this is actually what exactly the difference of CI engines and SI engines. With this, we conclude the basics, basic information about what are the components and what are the based on the ignition systems, the compression ignition and the spark ignition system, and based on the number of strokes, four-stroke engines. So I thank you all of you for listening me lecture.